I'm Trinidadian. Let's queer up the worldview. Plateau after the pushback as global LGBT support stabilizes. The 2026 Ipsos Pride Report indicates that the sharp decline in LGBTQ plus public acceptance seen during recent corporate and political pushbacks has leveled off, giving way to a period of stabilization. The global study, tracking nearly 20,000 adults, shows that foundational support remains robust. 66% of respondents back marriage equality or legal recognition, anchored by heavy approval in the Netherlands, Spain, and Sweden. However, sharp cultural divides persist. Support for brands actively promoting LGBTQ plus equality flattened at 42%, a major drop from nearly half of the public 5 years ago. Furthermore, policy issues surrounding transgender individuals continue to see the most intense resistance. Global support for trans athletes competing based on gender identity dropped to just 22% this year, down from 32% in 2021. Experts say while basic legal protections remain stable, cultural consensus remains highly fragmented. Well, I think I'm glad that it's plateauing in other countries. I think in this country we're the opposite direction because of the administration we have. And it's unfortunate because I'm on all the conservative chats. You
love that stuff.
I don't love it, but I feel like that's
it's your
the
duty.
warrior.
It's
my duty to be there to combat it.
Yeah.
And so every time that there's some kind of fumble going on in the administration, it's run a drag story, run a trans story. And if there's one trans person that got into some trouble, they're going to take that picture and they're going to run that story 24/7.
Yeah.
For the rest of the week.
Yep. And they're going to have bots do the same thing.
Yeah, and I have people that are mildly mildly conservative that talk to me about how they feel about trans and drag and all that stuff. And I can tell they're just looking at it from the TV. They don't know any trans person. They don't go to drag shows or anything like that. So I have to tell them, I'm like, you think that they're going into the school, like drag queens are going into schools to like educate your children? I was like, that's not happening. And I said, I really need you to prove this to yourself. Go ask any teacher if they have any trans drag people or whatever coming into that,
infiltrating.
Yeah, like it's just not happening. It's just you're looking at these stories, And so that's really contributing to that. But I also did want to bring up one other point, is that I do think that our community does have a tendency to, like, once you get a little win here, you start pushing it over the edge. And I think that there is a formula that wherever the public is at, you can't go this much further in front of it or else you get the pendulum backlash, And I think the best example was gay marriage. I think we just did that so perfectly to change public opinion. We didn't get in people's face and say, like, you're just a nasty bigot for this, We showed stories of two people who love each other and we're like, how could this be wrong, And we try to bring people in instead of getting so opposed this way. And I really hope that in the next few years, especially with this contentious administration and what Trump does, I do think that conservatives are they're seeing how pugilistic they are, and that they'll appreciate the gay people, the people that are on the opposite side of the aisle, actually really extending an olive branch and say, hey, we're your brothers and sisters too.
Good word, pugilistic. What was it?
Pugilistic.
I love that. That was a good word, John. Anything?
I agree that it's nice to see that we're sort of staunching the bleeding. And there's an article today. Maybe it was yesterday. Trump was invited to the Republican Senate luncheon, and he got into a shouting match with a senator from Louisiana. So the cracks are showing. So look for a lot of trans and drag queen stories coming up in your feed.
For 100%. Well, the good news is that support didn't fall off a cliff, right? The bad news, we've apparently entered the era of I support you, but not too loudly. All right. So equality isn't a trend. If your allyship expires when it's politically inconvenient, it was never allyship to begin with. And we've got to be aware of that, So there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.